graduated from college. And I was like, just apply everywhere as long as it's on the coast. Santa Cruz, I was like, oh, I've heard of that. There's skimboarding there for sure. It's pitch black, foggy. You're really confused on where you just got. You roll up the next day and you're like, oh, dang, I just ended up in like the nicest beach town I could possibly end up in.
Can you tell us a little bit about Premier Skim, like your initial vision for it?
10, 12 years ago or something like that.
When you were still on the East Coast?
Yeah, when I was in Florida. So it was like compete all those years and it's like, we could do better. How do we adjust this to make that better? Clinics and demos I think are super important. Pro demos, kids will see that and it blows their mind. But if they don't see it at the beach, they'll never know about it. Finding sponsorships is the hardest thing for me. I think becoming a nonprofit has helped. I've gotten more yeses and I've gotten more creative. PremierSkim.com you can go to. You just have ways you can help. We're excited to keep doing this and keep pushing the sport forward.
Hey everyone, this is Trey Lee with another podcast episode. And ladies and gentlemen, today we have a very special guest. We have Clay Powell right here. Clay is the founder of Premier Skim, and we're going to get into it, but without any further ado, Clay.
What's up, Trey?
Yeah, how's it going, man?
Pretty good. You know, tired.
Yeah, to the audience, if you don't know, we just covering, media-wise, the TAC Skim Blast yesterday, so pretty much some of the first people to arrive there on the beach, the last to leave, so we're pretty exhausted, but, you know, we powering through it because we're doing this all for you. This is to give you guys more of the stories behind the people who have impacted skimboarding so much, like Clay, yourself. And I know when I moved to the East Coast, or moved to the West Coast from the East Coast, and just knowing what you were doing and kind of knowing that you had maybe a similar path, but also understanding that in order to grow the sport, we have to contribute on the back end too, and you've done that in different ways we're going to get into. So yeah, thanks for that. But we'll get into it. So speaking of that journey from East Coast to West Coast and just getting started with skimboarding in general, can you tell us a little bit about your early life in on the East Coast, and Florida is where you're from, right?
Yeah.
And then and tell us how you got into skimboarding.
I grew up in an area where luckily, so it was Dania Beach. We had a squad down there. There's probably like 15 or 20 guys down there that skimmed for years. The whole lineup. I started when I was like probably 10 or 12, and then kind of popped in and out of it. I didn't start competing until I was like 18, 17. First contest was Volano. And then after that, it just stayed with it and just kept rolling, just nonstop after that. It's sorry, dude.
So like, why did you start competing when you did? Like, did you just feel like you had to get enough skills or enough tricks under your belt, or? Because you started really early. No, it's okay. We can always cut these things. Or if you want to you want me to repeat the question?
No.
Okay.
It's so funny. I don't know why I started competing. I just like competing. Like I just like competing. The first contest, I was like, yeah, this will be fine. I'm gonna do great. I'll be good. And then it was like instantly, like the first heat, I was like, yeah, I'll calm. They said go, and my heart was like.
Drops on the
floor. I was like, what is happening? And I fell on every single wave. It was pretty great,
Mm-hmm.
But it's all right, you go, you lose, and that's fine. Then you go back, try again, do a little better. But yeah, it's interesting because even like you go, you have fun. At that time, there was probably at that contest, there was about 300 competitors. I think in that Volano contest that year. That was like.
Skim USA?
No, that was on the UST at that point. It was a Volano contest. Okay. Skim USA was let's see, Skim USA. Trying to straighten it all out. Yeah, so I think I did Volano in it had to be 2011 or 2010, something like that, because I wasn't out of high school yet when I did that, but then after 2012, I went to Cabo on an alley-oop adventure with Jason Wilson and Paolo and Brandon Rowland. God dang it. What's his name? From Eel Snot. Toby.
Yeah.
And then also
Yeah, you don't have to remember everyone
no,
on the
I
trip.
just want to remember. No,
Yeah.
it's literally there's one more person that
Yeah.
I just feel dumb for blanking, but he has Eco Steel. Super nice dude. It's just like sorry.
Eco Steel.
Joss Hudson.
Oh, okay.
Super nice guy.
Yeah.
They're all rad people. But yeah, I went on there, met Brandon.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, he was getting ready to start JustSkim.com, which isn't around unfortunately anymore. But after that contest, we linked up. He hit me up and he was like, "Hey, do you want to go to Dewey?" It was either Dewey or like OBX or something like that. I think it might even been Southside Shootout. And I was like, at first I was kind of like, oh, am I going to go? And then last minute, like the day before, I was like, hey, I'm coming. And I drove across the state of Florida to Bradenton, hopped in his truck, and then we drove like 14 hours or 15 hours to Dewey the next day. And just like, yeah, it was like, and then after that, it was like nonstop contests for the next like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
So thank you to Brandon and his dad. They made all that competing possible because without them, I probably wouldn't have gone to like half of that. It's a lot to travel, and they were covering a lot of costs. Well, all the costs, pretty much. No, all the costs. Which was really, I was super grateful. You know, I'd pay for like a gas tank or like buy dinner or something like that. But it was, and they also hooked me up with a board from Land's End. That was sick. So like all that competing happened because of them.
Yeah.
And then like the one to start like something like Premier Skim really just came from competing a lot also and like wanting to do things a little differently and test different things out. Like not having 4-man heats and you know even minimizing 3-man heats because the sport's so fast that judges struggle to keep up with what's happening in front of them. So what can you do? You slow down. Like how do you slow down the heat? Well, having less people helps that. Making it easier to judge, like making it easier for them to understand what they're judging, and then also like if we're going to use electronic scoring, using something where it takes minimal like distraction. So instead of having to like push a screen and then go in and type the score like this, maybe using keyboards and stuff like that. But I haven't fully given into electronic scoring yet, so we'll get there.
Yeah.
When I feel everything is like honed perfectly with judging and we have exactly what we want to be judging down, then that will come. But for now, paper it is.
Also, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, this is like.
No, for sure. Yeah. No, it's so interesting. I mean, and it sounds like through those like Skim adventures, like you came into contact with a lot of people who work behind the scenes, like who helped sponsor you, and so how did they like being your specific like influencers and people you looked up to in the organizational front, like how did they impact your decision to become like a founder of like a Skim organization yourself? Like what did you see in, you mentioned, was it Brandon and other people that kind of influenced you?
Well, Brandon and them gave me opportunities to like really get into competing a lot, which is nice. But people like Jason Wilson and Harry Wilson, their competition. Well, Harry started. I believe he started Skim USA, which is like crazy feat. It's crushing it. But and then they have the amateur world champs and stuff like that. Actually, sorry, it's the Zap Pro Am now. Or
Zap Pro.
Yeah, Zap Pro Am or World Champion.
World Championship.
Yeah. That contest is like the sickest contest you can go to. It's so fun.
Dewey's
a blast, and it's like, you know, you look at that and they've started to. I haven't been able to go to it since they've kind of changed it to where they've made it more of a festival. Kind of bummed I haven't been able to make it out, but it's like they've always made the right moves. Every time you go there, it's ran super smooth. Judging's pretty on point. It's just like, you know, there's not really any delays in it. It's just there's a live DJ half the time. Like, it's killer. It's a fun time. You know, and I'm slowly getting there, but I look at that and I go, well, they've done it over X amount of years. I don't need to rush. I just slowly get there and take step by step, and like, you know, we gotta talk to people like him and like be like, hey, how do we do this better? What do we do to make this better? How do we really grow the sport? You know, and things like that, or want to keep people competing, because it's tough. You know, skimboarding is pretty small anyways, and the amount of people who actually want to compete is even smaller. So what do we do to really expand that?
Yeah,
it's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. And so, like, what are your? We're kind of skipping ahead a little bit, but what are some of like your ideas like about that? Like about taking like, you know, this Russian doll of like the skimboarding community of like you have a kind of a big small community, but then even a smaller community within that or group that actually likes to compete. And how do you kind of, you know, invite more people in? How do you make competitions more inviting, draw bigger, you know, groups to sign up?
I think a lot of it just came from a time where people just have to realize now that judging's a lot better than it was at a point. I think I don't know how bad it ever actually was, but I think that there's a huge misconception that judging is like super skewed or was super skewed, and it still is, you know. It's not. It's a lot better. They've done so many things to improve it. There's a lot more guidelines for judges to understand it. A lot of the contests now have paid judges. You know, something else that's made it more accurate is like when I was saying slowing down, like
smaller heats.
That helps, but also actually, so Skim USA aligned with the UST on the three waves, and for the pros at least. I'm not sure if it was for the amateurs still or not, but 5 waves is a lot of waves. It's like, so imagine having 4 people in a heat. This is why judging at a point was skewed. There's 4 people in heat. You have to get 5 waves. Your high and low gets dropped, but 2 or 3 people go at the same time. Then you end up with eyes everywhere and like a mess on a judging board, because like you're gonna do your best at staying consistent. I'm not saying it was done wrong. It's not no one's fault. You know, everyone's trying their best. It's just like those are things that have gotten better to make it to where like, okay, I can go and compete with confidence because I know that my judging is gonna be better because I'm in a 3-man heat and I only have to get 3 waves in my heat. I don't have to worry about running just to run because I need 5 waves in an 8-minute time period. You know, and also I'm trying not to go at the same time as these 3 other people. You know, so you take those things into account and you adjust it and you go, okay, how do I slow this down so the judging becomes more accurate? So I think it's just building people's confidence, like the people who don't compete for those reasons, and then also like just starting with kids that are younger and like with the camps and and like lessons and like running like fake heats just to see who might actually be interested. A lot of kids are nervous to compete their first time. You know, they go, they see
practice.
Yeah, that. Then you also have some smaller competitions for amateurs because they see these big competitions as intimidating. Like it's super intimidating. You go, oh geez, like there's like 500 people. You know, like
enter the skim jams and other things.
Yeah, you want them to feel good. You don't want them to feel like they got robbed. You know, like that's the worst thing. But really, it's mainly also just getting more people involved. Skimboarding goes through this like up and down cycle of people. People get really into it, and then like half of them fade away because we can't like we can't bring enough new people in at the same time. You know, like there's not enough new people coming in as fast as people are just like fading out. So eventually you hit this super low, and then okay, more people kind of got into it, and they discover competing. So then the competitions grow a little bit, and then some more people fall out, and then like it gets rediscovered. So you end up in this like really up and down. Like, anyways, I'm trying to stop that from happening.
Yeah, no, it's so interesting too because you remind me of what I was talking to Casey about of the cyclical nature of like the skimboarding popularity and the tricky part is always just trying to keep it on the up cycle, like trying to keep it increasing. So yeah, it's interesting like your ideas about how to do that through more like effective judging, smaller heats, like making the event seem less rushed, and then also taking more of like the youth and the grums and making them like more comfortable entering it, so it's not as intimidating when they're actually on the sand on the beach and at a competition and their heart drops to the floor and they just I mean everyone's gonna fall, but it's also about understanding that okay, I fell, but you get up, you keep pushing and just do the best you can. Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about your journey from the East Coast to the West Coast. You're now in Santa Cruz. We're in Santa Cruz studio right now, and shout out to Impact Creative, the studio that we're in. But tell us like what prompted that move, and what has been like the skim scene differences that you've seen between like the East Coast or in Florida specifically and like the Santa Cruz area.
Yeah, so Maria graduated from college, and then I was like, all right, I'm done with this, and we both kind of wanted to just come to California. I'm a skimboarder. I was like, Laguna. Maria was like, I kind of want San Francisco, and I was like, well, just apply everywhere, and wherever we end up, as long as it's on the coast.
Right. Yeah. And, Maria, for the audience, right?
Yeah.
Your wife.
Yeah. So luckily she ended up with getting like a job offer. It was like Santa Cruz, Monterey, or San Jose. And I was like, well, San Jose, we might as well stay in Florida. It's just a hot town, and it's just a bunch of cars, and yeah, might as well stay in Florida at that point.
Yeah.
Half Moon Bay I never really heard of. Santa Cruz, I was like, oh, I've heard of that. Let me look it up real quick, and I was like, oh yeah, there's skimboarding there for sure. That's not the reason we ended up there, but I was like, it looks like a fun town. Mm-hmm. Well, we're super lucky to end up in Santa Cruz. It's a super sick town. So that's kind of how we just like ended up in Santa Cruz. I'd never been here, but you roll up in the middle of the night. It's pitch black, foggy. You're really confused on where you just got, and you roll up the next day, and you're like, oh dang, I just ended up in like the nicest beach town I could possibly end up in. So that was rad. And then yeah, the skim scene from like east to west coast is it's different because Santa Cruz is tiny, so there's like 30 of us. You like the most crowded I've ever seen, like 26 or something like that, is like maybe 15 people skimming at the same time.
Really? Okay.
Without a competition.
Yeah.
It's tiny. East Coast, like, I would say that people are way more willing to just be like share about like where waves are working.
Not a lot of secret spots.
Well, no, just like in general, even like like you're not going to go on social media. Like if you see a wave working in Santa Cruz, it was working 2 weeks ago. You don't know. Yeah. You just have to kind of like go and find your spots. If you're lucky enough, then you were there. And if you saw it and it was 2 weeks before that, then you go check and you hope it's still working.
I see. Yeah. That's one thing I noticed too. Don't go live on beaches in the skim scene on the West Coast because you will get called out.
Well, especially if you're in Laguna.
Yeah,
because there's 300 skimboarders there. Yeah, everyone will show up and it'll be like it'll be crazy. But I mean, up here you could go live. You'll get like 10 messages saying don't do that.
Right.
But like. I don't know. It's fine. It's cool.
It's one of those unwritten rules, though. Like you do it once, you learn. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand it. Yeah, I understand it to a certain extent. I think sharing it within the community that's already like here isn't a big deal.
Yeah.
I
Like if you have a
understand,
local
and if it's a really
yeah.
known beach, it's not that big of a deal. But if it's an unknown beach, the problem with it in California is that like if it's an unknown beach and someone sees it that is like huge on social media, they'll share it, and then all of a sudden you have a trashed beach. Like one of my favorite beaches I go to, it's pretty known, but like it like holiday weekends happen and some people like hundreds of people will show up at that beach or like 50 cars will park at that beach and then you go down the next day and it's trash, like covered in trash, and it's sad because it's like, well, you carried it down, just pick it up, you know. And it takes 5 minutes. I've done it before where I go down there and you have a trash bag and you just clean up the whole beach in like 5-10 minutes. It feels like 15 minutes maybe, but it's like, well, why, like how much of this just ended up in the water, you know, because people were drunk and just didn't feel like picking it up.
It's not an excuse.
It's so irritating. Yeah, it's super irritating. So that's why it makes sense you don't share it, because like you put that stuff out on social media and like especially if you drop the name of it, people see it and random people see it and then they destroy the beach, and it's bummy. But I think sharing within the community is not so bad, you know. Yeah, so I think that's like one of the bigger differences that I've kind of had to adjust to. Yeah.
I feel you. Yeah. So, yeah, you told us a little bit about like your journey coming over here and like the skim scene differences. So, I think that makes sense, and that totally sort of aligns with like what I've experienced as well. Can you tell us a little bit about Premier Skim, like your initial vision for it? When did the idea first pop into your head?
All a long time, like probably like 10, 12 years ago or something like that.
When you were still on the East Coast?
Yeah, when I was in Florida going to, well, like I said, so it was like compete all those years, and it's like, I mean, I liked holding events anyways. Like I did bike races too for a bit while I was in school in Gainesville in Florida. It was, I would just sit in these classes and just be like, well, you know, like you see the jerseys at the competitions, you go, well, the jerseys are like whatever, you know, like this is, like we could do better. So just come up with like jersey designs, and then like, okay, how can we make judging better, and just like write down all these things about judging that like, okay, how do we adjust this to make that better? Why isn't live streaming happening? You know, live streaming mostly didn't happen because it's expensive. It's still expensive to pay someone to do it. Like I have all the equipment and my events are still hard to get streamed. I can stream other people's events for them easily. But like streaming my own event, I have to pay a filmer, you know. I have to like find someone to film, and then if I really want to do it, I have to find a filmer, because the ultimate goal is like filmer, 2 commentators, no, not just 1 filmer. My ultimate one would be like two filmers, and then a 3rd camera on the commentators, and then someone who manages the stream. So like that's like
you need
5 people, you know. That's like $200 a person a day, probably, at least. So you're sitting at like $1,500 or so, like by the end of it, and that's still a lot of money. And it goes, okay, that's a ton of money, even just for someone who already has the equipment. So imagine not having your own equipment, having to either fly someone there or rent equipment or pay a production company. And production companies, they charge $4 to $8 grand a day, like probably about $4 grand a day.
Wow,
for especially an 8-hour day, 8 or 10 if you want the whole thing streamed, which I think is like, it's so long. It's such a long stream. Like it's fine, but like it's like that's a long stream. So those production companies, they like, it's pretty wild. So at that time, it was definitely like a hard no. Luckily, some of this equipment that's come out, it's made it a lot more affordable to get it and like kind of just make it happen. You know, it's not perfect, but it's a starting point. Anyways, back to the main point was, just sitting in the classroom and like writing all these things down. I tried to pull my first permits. Actually in like 2012 was the first time. This was actually out of high school. I believe it was like it had to be like 2012, 2013, because I just graduated, and I I was just nervous because I didn't understand like you see these government forms and you go, I've never filled out one of these. Like, what if I mess up? You know?
Right.
And it's a really dumb thing because truthfully, you just fill it out
Yeah.
and you send it off and they go, hey, can you fix this? And you're like, yeah, and you fix it and you're like, okay, perfect. I'll talk to you. But like things get delayed because little doubts like that. You go, oh man, okay, didn't do it. And then I ended up competing for all those years, and then it was like, okay, a couple of years ago after we opened our shop and stuff, it just seemed right. I was like, I can do this now. Like, I'm just gonna fill out a permit and just do it, like no matter what, how it goes. And it happened. I was like, okay, now I'm gonna do 3, and then the next year I was like, I'm gonna do 5, and then this year I went back to 3 because I didn't have the time. But we're reset up now, so it's like now we're a nonprofit. Like that was part of it. There was a lot of stress last year, and like I was like, okay, am I gonna make this a nonprofit or I'm gonna try again as like a sole proprietorship? And it was like, no, just make the change. It'll be better, Made that change, and it has been actually a lot better. A lot less stress involved on me because it's just like it's separate from me. It's a whole separate entity now, and it's a huge relief.
Yeah.
Because I just feel like I can be way more open about like certain things, and bringing people into it is a lot easier because people don't look at me and go like you shouldn't be making money off the sport, and I don't think anyone's making money off the sport at this point. Like,
No, yeah.
Like I am highly like way behind. You know, like I think I might have like. No, I still definitely did not even break even, but it's fine, which was fine, but that was the point. Like, am I willing to keep pushing that, or do I just scrap it and like change to a nonprofit and make sure that it always is like in the positive and like, so that was definitely the proper choice, So now it's like it's a 509(2)A, which is it's a 501c3 essentially. So like now all the donations can get written off from people who donate and things like that. So it's nice, So it's pretty rad how that happened. But yeah, it started out as the Premier Skimboard League, and then changed it to Premier Skim because I just felt like it was more all encompassing. It's not just a league; it's more about just pushing the sport forward. So it's kind of dope.
Yeah, totally. And looking online at your mission statement, it mentions that your mission is to grow the sport through competitions, clinics, and demos. So why those 3 aspects of skimboarding? And are you looking into any others or to help grow the sport?
Well, there's definitely more. Like,
I'm just looking at your mission statement.
But so I mean, clinics and demos I think are super important. That's something that like right now, like it's cool because Zap goes along like the whole Skim USA tour and has demo boards the whole way. It stinks when you're involved in something and like you're like, okay, am I gonna buy this $600 board that I've never tried? Is it the right size? Is it this? So it's really sick that they do that because people can try the board. Oh, I like this shape. What size should I be? Versus like I bought one board from a different company once where it was like I got it and ended up it was slightly too small, and it was from a different country too, but it was like slightly too small. I still liked it for liners a lot, but there was a little more flex, and I was like, dang man, I really wish I could have just tried a board before this. So I think like demos are really, really important. Also, like if you have for the demos, like pro demos, kids will see that and it blows their mind. Like I did like a little camp this past summer, this summer, and like a couple lessons, and most of the time I'm just focused on helping them, but also like run for some waves and like show them like certain maneuvers and things like that, and they're just like their mind gets blown. They're like, that's what I want to do, If a kid doesn't see that, like, or if people have never seen that, like, there's so many people who come from like Sacramento here and they go to the beach, like once or twice a year. If they don't see skimboarding, they'll never know what it is. But if they see it, like, or if they have seen it, like, some of these people are willing to drive that to come skim more. They're willing to like buy a board and come skim. But if they don't see it at the beach, they'll never know about it, and they'll just go live in Sacramento, like 115 degrees in like the middle of nowhere.
Right.
Versus where you get down on a busy beach, you do a demo, people get their mind blown, and they go, I'm going to go buy a board and I want to try this out, you know? So I think that's why it's important to do that. Clinics, you can teach people. Like, I would love to offer free clinics. We're getting there. It just takes time to raise the funds and stuff. But also there's camps, you know, and lessons, offering those. The camps, you get involved in the community, in your local community, and it'll slowly grow. Like, Santa Cruz had I would say probably right now there's more kids skimming than I've seen, like younger kids in the area, which is nice. The cooler thing is, like, if you do camps and clinics, the few kids that already skimboard, their parents want them to skim with their friends. They want to be able to take them to the beach and, like, add those kids to this group. So what they do is they hit up the other parents. Hey, you want? I'm gonna do this camp. You want to, like, have your kid? They'll teach them how to skim. It'll be a blast. Our kids can hang out at the beach. All of a sudden, you're adding like 2, 4, 6, maybe 10 more kids to this community. And then as they grow up, maybe 4 of them compete, you know? Maybe all of them compete, you don't know. But they're all more likely to try competing and staying and like more willing to stay in the community if they have someone to, like, help them through that process, you know? So it's super, super important. We have some things that hopefully will work out in the next couple months that I think will kind of really move that along. So I'm getting excited about it.
Yeah,
Definitely excited. So we'll see what happens. I don't know.
Yeah, it's really exciting, and I know we were talking about this earlier ourselves, but, like, for the audience, I think you're thinking about working with the local, like, Boys and Girls Club here and trying to collab with them a little bit.
Yeah, we haven't had the conversation yet, but
okay.
Hopefully,
yeah.
It was planned, but they got COVID and stuff like that. So
like policies.
Yeah, and the summer's super busy for them. So hopefully, in the school year, it'll work out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. So, after putting in this effort and everything, like, what has, from your perspective, been the response of, like, the local community here? Like, you know, you're putting in all of this input. Like, what kind of output are you getting, or are you seeing, and maybe even just verbally, people are telling parents or kids or, like, just skimboarders in general are, like, telling you? Like, what's been the response?
Do you mean, like, competitively, or, like, camp wise? They love it.
Yeah.
The people who are, like, getting involved, they love it. They definitely love it.
Mm-hmm.
Competing, they like it too. It's like, competing is it's one of those interesting things where, like, you know, it's new. Anything that's new, well, it's kind of new. It's getting there. I think it's coming along. You know, but, like, say the first year you come in and as, like, a new organization, people kind of, you know, and I probably would have done the same thing, like, oh, like, what's that? You know, you're like, oh, like, what's going on? Like, what's changing? You know, change is weird.
Yeah.
You know, but it's like, it's more about just giving it a chance, and, like, and I think people have had a good response, which is nice, you know, and I think people are coming along, and, like, it's forming into its own thing, which is rad. But you know, at first there was a lot of, like, well, why don't you just, you know, do it with the other organizations? It's like, well, I had a plan, you know, and I wanted to try it. It didn't matter what, like, no matter what, I just wanted to try it to see if it would work. You know, if it failed, I would have been like, hey, do you guys need help? But I just really, like, have this vision of, like, making change, and the easiest way to do that was to just do it. You know, like, it's like, for instance, streaming, like, you know, there's no way I could make it to all these contests. I mean, I have to work, you know, it's super expensive here, you have to work.
There's only one of you.
Yeah, so it's like, I like, if I was, and it's obscene, because this is why production companies have to charge so much, because it's like, you have to make a living, and it's like, yeah, I would literally have to charge $5,000 to be able to make a living, to go to, like, anywhere, you know, because it'd be like, okay, the cost of travel, and stuff like that, and then actually pocketing money to be able to pay rent at home, or something like that, you know? So it's weird. So instead what I did was just told them what equipment to buy, so they could set up streams. And then, like, kind of gave them some guidelines on how to do it, but after that it's just kind of, like, up to you, and you got it, you know? That way people could watch it, because like, now it's not as expensive to do it, you know, if you have the equipment. You make, like, an initial investment, and then you just make sure you have someone there filming. And that'll do for now until we get more money to bring in commentators and make it like really entertaining.
Right. Get the drone.
Yeah, we're gonna get there.
Angles.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
We're gonna get there. Just funding's coming. Funding
Step by step. I think you just mentioned something there. I think is so critical though. You mentioned just you could have initially just like kind of tagged along an existing organization or company and done what they were doing, but you had a specific vision that you felt that only you could sort of deliver in a way, and you wanted to see that through, so you stood up and did it yourself. And talking with Ben last night of Tack Apparel and him getting started with the Tack Skim Blast 10 years ago, he said almost the exact same thing to me last night, where it was just like no one else was doing it, so like if he didn't do it, it just wouldn't get done. So you just have to sort of step up to the plate. And this is something I encourage like anybody in the skimboarding community to do. Like if you there's an aspect of skim that you think you can contribute to help the sport grow, like just do it. Like that, you don't need permission from someone else to do things. Like if you see there's a value that other people would enjoy, I encourage you guys to go ahead and go about that. So I just wanted to emphasize that.
No, yeah. Don't ever let someone discourage you from doing it.
Yeah, totally. And so it's been 4 years since you've been running competitions with Premier. You were telling me about. So tell us about that arc. Like, tell us about the different events. Specifically, I'm talking about like the competitions that you've been running, evolving from like the sort of like the remote pandemic one to like the ad hoc standalone ones to like the West Coast Skim Tour. Tell us about that arc. Like what's changed for you running those competitions and over these 4 years, and how do you think it's going to go in the future?
Yeah. So the beginning started everything very beginning of 2020. I was trying to get permits, and then COVID happened. And since I had all the streaming stuff, I was actually still trying to get permits, but it turned out I was talking to the wrong Right. It's funny when you first try to get permits, you're trying to figure out who to talk to.
Yeah.
To actually get the permit for that beach, even like 26, they were like, oh, it's, that part is actually private property, and then this part is ran by these people. Let me call the lifeguards. Da 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 da. Well, it turned out originally I was talking to the wrong person. Either way, they were probably going to say no. So we ended up doing a digital competition that year. That was cool. It was fun. And then 2021, we did the Velovic with Gary from Velocity Skimboards and Victoria Skimboards with Tex and them. That one was pretty cool because there was, I don't think Oktoberfest ran that year, or did they run that? I don't think Newport let them run.
No, because of the lockdown and everything.
Because of the lockdown,
yeah.
But Laguna let the Vic happen, and then Santa Cruz let us run. It was cool since there was no other competitions. Everyone came, so it was like that makes everything a lot easier. We had like 56 entries or something, and I was like, oh, this is great, a lot easier, to actually make the contest happen. And then next year when everything started back up, I actually tried to make it to where it was invite only, not invite only, but like if I would have hit 24 pros on invites, we would have just maxed it out, just kind of like let everyone know, have names on jerseys, stuff like that. Keep trying to do that again. I think it's a really cool concept, and I think the more people that have been coming along now they're going to get more involved in it, and that will make planning for the future easier with pros and stuff like that. But we're getting there. But yeah, that year, so 2022 we ran Marine Street. So we did Marine Street, Santa Cruz, and Tamarack. Thanks to you. I think it was Tamarack or Marine. Tamarack.
Well, we did. Well,
but
Tamarack and Marine.
But the permitting. Who did we talk? There was one of them that I was like trying so hard to get the permitting.
Oh, it was Marine.
It was Marine Street.
That's in San Diego. Yeah. Yeah. I had to
like knock on the door or something. Yeah. So like now I just have their email, and it took us like a month to get a hold of them.
Yeah. Back to what you're saying.
Yeah. And
like,
now it takes 2 seconds.
Who do I talk to? Yeah.
Now it takes 2 seconds.
Yeah.
So yeah, we did Marine Street, Santa Cruz, and then Tamarack. And that year, I actually did instead of doing individual prize purses, I just did overall prize purse for like people who were coming.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the tour, we did the prize purse. I changed from that. I went back to individual prize purses. It works a little better for everyone. Makes sense, but you know, got to try things. And then 2023, I did 5 contests. I did.
Yeah,
We
ambitious.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, in 2022 we did Marine Street, which was amateur only.
Was it?
No, it was
No, 'cause,
amateur.
yeah,
It was amateur only, and then we also did.
I thought it was just it was open.
Oh, it was open.
Because John
That's
was
what
there
it
too.
was.
And
Yeah,
some
it
of
was
the big
open.
guys.
That's what we did.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I'm trying to, man.
Yeah.
That's
so
what we
here.
did. We did it as
Yeah.
open.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did it as open, which I think is cool because it was just like, I did cycling and I did fixed gear cycling, and it just like in fixed gear cycling you can fixed gear criteriums. It's kind of just an open division because there's no real standards for it on that, in that kind of cycling. And so you end up with this mixture of professional cyclists and like people who ride their bikes every day of their life but don't race all the time. And then you have people who are like not beginners but like are kind of getting into racing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this big mess, but it's so fun. But I think open just was more friendly to amateurs just wanting to try to like see how they would compete against pros, versus like being like pro, I'm never gonna enter that, not right now at least. Open, they're like, oh, maybe I'll try it. So I just thought that was fun, but went back to pro. People just seem to like it better. And then also in 2023 we separated some of the contests, so we did Marine Street as amateur only, Thalia Street as amateur only. We did the Aliso Pro, Santa Cruz Pro-Am, and then Tamarack Pro-Am, which was really fun. And it was a lot of fun, but when I did, the way I scheduled Marine Street, Thalia, and Aliso, they were 2 weeks apart. So it was like every 2 weeks I was driving 7.5 hours to go to these contests, and I would drive down the night before, get there at like 10 p.m. or like 2 a.m. or something, sleep for 4 hours, wake up, set everything up, and by the time I was done, I was like, well, I have nothing to do here, so I would just drive another 7 hours back home. So I did that for like 6 weeks, basically, and by the end of it, it was so much. I was like, you know what, I need to reconsider what I'm doing. I do want to bring back Thalia Street and Marine Street. I just needed to get everything a little more situated, along with changing to the nonprofit. So that was the decision that happened this past winter, which took time to get everything to go through. So all my permitting got pushed like 2 months because I was waiting for to get the nonprofit set up, and then once I got that back, I could get all the like bank accounts set up, and then I could get the permits paid for. So that pushed everything this year, and that's why I couldn't do like certain things with jerseys that I wanted to do. Some of the permitting also got pushed a little bit, but going into this year, all the planning's like going into 2025. All the planning's already like kind of started, and like after each contest, the permits get resubmitted essentially, and then like September, like right around September, start reaching out to sponsors again for next year and things like that, so everything just already starts rolling. It's not just like, oh, this contest's done, I'm chilling. It's like, no, It's back on it, instantly. God, okay. But that way after maybe like take a break in October or something like that, but come back, and in November, hopefully I'm talking like the pros and being like, hey, here are the dates, like, do you want to make it? If we can do it this way, this is what the prize purse minimum will be, and like here's the max amount of people who are going to enter, and just like really just have everything mapped out and timed out to where we're running like 4.5-hour days, or maybe 5-hour days, rather than 8, 9, 10-hour days. It's so long, such a long con. It's great. I love having and I would love to eventually have like massive contests, like that. But also like, I need to think about how to make it work to where we all don't burn out. You know, for now. You know, if it grows past that, great. But I don't need a 10-hour day. You know, like 4.5, 5-hour days for like the amateurs and the pros right now. And as we slowly hone everything in, if we're running, even for the streams, like 4 hours is perfect. Like it's a perfect length of a stream. You know, if we're gonna focus on streaming and doing stuff like that, like 4 hours is great. Like 8 hours is insanely long. And how long are we keeping people's interest at that point? Are like commentators gonna be really willing to sit there and talk for 8 hours straight? You know, like that's tough to do. 4 hours though, you could keep a single viewer on there for a full 4 hours, which means you could probably keep a few hundred single viewers on there.
Better retention.
For 4, yeah, and that's killer. Like that's what we need. So yeah, we'll just see how it keeps going. It'll be good.
Yeah.
We're getting there.
Well, yeah, man. Like, God bless you. Like, I don't know how you do it. I mean, it's. Even for me, it's so difficult. Like, just traveling and trying to cover events, but then also that other step of organizing your own events and everything is just quite a challenge. And I'm interested in challenges in general. Like, over the course of Premier Skim, what are the most like challenging aspects of running Premier? And yeah, what do you need help with? Like, we have an audience here and things like that. So what's some of those challenges that like you take on versus like maybe collaborating with partnerships and volunteers even to try to tackle?
Yeah, I would say the toughest part, definitely the toughest part is getting sponsorships. I think I'm okay at communicating, but I'm pretty sure I'm horrible at it. Like I can talk and I'll make sure I say something, but I don't think I say the right things.
Okay.
So, it's not on purpose, and I never have ill intentions of anything I ever do. There's not like I don't mean to ever hurt anyone's feelings or like do anything like that. But you know, sometimes I think I'm saying something normal and it just comes out in like not the right tone or like not the right way, and then I'm like sitting there so confused of like, oh, what did I do? And I'm like, oh no, that wasn't right. Like that's not what I meant, you know. So I think I'm just not as great at communicating as I think I am. So like definitely finding sponsorships is like the hardest thing for me. Also just the first or second year I reached out to hundreds of companies. It was so hard to just get a yes. I think becoming a nonprofit has helped. I've gotten more yeses and I've gotten more creative. The other thing is like reaching out to sponsors. Like you have to get creative. You have to, you have to make it something they actually want to be a part of. You know, like oh, I'm getting value out of this. It's not just like I'm going to give them something. You know, so like I've also gotten more creative at it, which has helped. But I think there's probably someone out there better at that than me. Like, and it's the same thing. The next thing would be like social media. I think I do an alright job at it, but it also is like maybe having someone that is also pretty decent at it that can just like fill in the gaps because it's so tough to do. And that's all budgeting issues too. If I had the budget to do it, I would definitely have someone help. Like I would definitely pay someone to help do it because it's tough, and it's important to do. Volunteers and stuff. That's something I'm getting better about because that's a big. I think that's a touchy point for skimboarding, and that's where like doing 4 hours days is important because 8 hours and you volunteer a long, like if you volunteer 8 hours, 9 hours, you can do it for so long. Then eventually like you just feel burnt, and if you do that for a long time and you feel like there's no like people say thank you and stuff like that, but you feel like there's just no like I don't know, not really any gratitude or something like that, or just you're tired, you're burnt and stuff like that. You just feel like, okay, I've been doing this a long time and things like that. Like I just feel like at that point you start to feel used instead, and you don't want to feel that way, So I've always like, even from the beginning, I've been terrified to ask anyone for help. I've been giving away free entries for like people who judge because I just like I was like, you got to get something out of this because you've been judging all day, Like I don't want to feel, I don't want you to feel like I've used you and things like that. And like if they decide at the end like no, it's all good, that's up to them, But like at this point with the nonprofit, it's made it easier because I'm not getting anything out of it. Literally, even the from the camp, all that money I'm not paying myself. It's just going right back into Premier Skim. The lessons I've given, it's all been donations into it's like basically all just goes to Premier Skim. I don't take any of that money. The stream yesterday, people donated, all that money just goes right into Premier Skim. Like, I'm not taking any of that money. You know, if we get into a different situation where like we can employ, if I can become an employee eventually, and you know we have a different person on the board or something like that, because we have so much funding, that's different. Because I would love to turn it into a career, but that all when you do that, all the pay gets decided by other people. You know, you're hiring an employee. You're not like, I'm not gonna sit here and be like, oh, I'm writing my own check. You literally have to like basically find someone who says this is how much you can pay them because it's comparable to this other organization. But so much funding, like literally probably like $60,000 to $100,000 would have to come through in funding, and like maybe 40 of that would be a salary if it was a full-time job. And I don't even think I'd be able to get it to a full-time job. Ideally, that would be sick, because then it could put so much effort into the sport. Like I could almost do streaming for free for every competition at that point, you know, because I'm already getting paid.
Right.
The equipment I already have, but I'm getting paid to basically make streaming or make skimboarding go forward. So what problem would I have doing a contest for free at that point? You know, like, as long as it's going to the Premier Skim website or something, because all the energy could literally just go back. It would be a full-time job, you know. So that'd be rad. I don't know how we ended up on this. But anyways, it's like these things that just go through your mind. It's so crazy. And you know, that's the dream. Like, be able to push the sport forward and like really give it like an all-out effort, versus like, okay, I'm like giving it my all, but I only have about like this much energy left. You know, versus like all the energy is just going into that. But yeah. Back to the point of stuff being difficult, I think mainly sponsors is the hardest thing. Is definitely the hardest thing. I haven't, like, I would say this year I didn't go too hard on it, because like I reached out to like the base core. You came through, thank you. Zap Skimboards hooked us up, so we're gonna have the Zap Pro-Am at Tamarack Beach. Then you have the jersey sponsors. Zap was on there again, and then we had Victoria Skimboards, Exile, Skim Steezy, Shore Pound. I believe that was all of them. Because it's too sweet.
You said Victoria?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, nope, that's a lie. Zoom Wax.
Zoom
Wax. They came through strong too.
Slide
my bad, guys. I was like, I think that's all of them. No, I just forget.
They're on your website.
Yeah, so that's important.
We can plug them.
Yeah, you can see all of the sponsors. Yeah. If you just go to the Premier Skim homepage, you just go down to the bottom. All the sponsors are right there. So that's been sick. Also, Victor Enriquez, always just helping me out. You know, he's been like. Donating constantly, which is nice. I really appreciate him. He's been doing that for like at least 2 years, just randomly donating money, and it's like super appreciative of that, which is great. But yeah, so this year, like, those are kind of the core sponsors. I have Santa Cruz coming up, and well, we have the Vic. So the rest of the tour right now for this year was Aliso Pro, then we have the Vic on board, and then we have the Santa Cruz Pro-Am, and then we have the Zap Pro-Am at Tamarack Beach. So the Vic is August 17th and 18th. Santa Cruz is going to be September 7th. That's a one-day contest, and then the Zap Pro-Am is going to be October 5th, and that's also a one-day contest. So yeah, it's going to be a good rest of the year, I think.
Yeah, totally. I'm stoked for the events to come, and yeah, definitely, guys, like, note those dates, and hope to see you out there. And so, looking at the future of Premier Skim, what is like your vision of Premier Skim to come? And we talked about all these different aspects of things you're currently doing, competitions, you know, skim camps, you know, and doing things like we've mentioned. Like, what's like to come? What should the people like look out for in Premier Skim?
I mean, it's really it's going to be a lot of camps,
Mm-hmm.
and then expansion on the competition. So it'll be we'll see where we end up. But right now, we're gonna like focus on getting the camps going here in California, and the lessons going in California. And if we can duplicate what we do here, it'll just expand slowly. Because the camps, like whether they're free or not, or if we can link up with certain organizations and get funding that way, it'll just allow the organization to be self-sufficient,
Mm-hmm.
and like the sponsors just become additive rather than like I'm scraping by every year trying to just find sponsors. Like it's a headache trying to do that because you're asking companies for money. We have a business and like we sponsor things every once in a while, but when someone asks you for money, you're like, do I want to give them money?
Right.
And I get it because it's you got to know that they do a good job, and you got to know that like the eyes are going to be there, and like or that it's just something you really want to support. That's the other thing. If you want to support it, it's fine. You're like, cool. I genuinely just want to see this do better. Like here you go.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so like, and that's like Zap. What they did is they gave us boards, and that's allowed us to have these camps, which is now raising money for the sport.
Mm-hmm.
So it's if we can just keep making those camps bigger, it's just going to allow the sport to keep moving forward. So I think that's a lot of the focus right now, and then the competitions will only get better as the funding gets better too.
Totally.
And then as the funding gets better, we'll be able to do free clinics and stuff like that too, which would be ideal. So we're getting there.
For sure, yeah. And I know we've talked about this a little bit, in like personally, but what kind of ideas do you have for getting more international involvement? With Premier Skim.
So, what time is it? Real quick, sorry.
10:45.
I gotta go, dude.
Oh, you gotta go soon.
Yeah,
Okay.
I literally got. I'll answer this real quick, but I gotta go.
And then any other shout outs after that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've tried reaching out to other countries for the last 4 years because it's not even of like making it happen now. It's more of just trying to get the conversations going. But I do have like a whole plan on like making that happen too. I don't really want to like over explain it right now because like it like the people who know, and I think we can get it there, but it just like Brazil and then Europe, I think if we work together it could be a pretty sick thing for the sport. So hopefully soon that will happen. I just focus here for now and keep trying to talk to them and slowly get through what we need to make it happen. But when it comes out, it'll come out. It should be pretty sick. That's a whole nother conversation.
Okay, we'll have a part 2 to this.
It's almost a whole nother organization. So it's like
So I definitely want to wrap it up. So before you go, just tell people where can they find you, how do they support you?
So you can just go to either premierskim.com. You can go to. You can also if you want to support and donate, or if you just have ways you can help, you can email us at You can actually just email me at clay@premierskim.com. You can also follow us on YouTube, Instagram, just at Premier Skim. The YouTube's where the lives will be. Instagram's just pretty much daily content as much as we can. But yeah, so you can find us on all those. It's but yeah, we're excited to keep doing this and keep pushing the sport forward, and also at some point we'll have more shirts. So that'd be cool. Slowly coming out.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Clay, for your time. I know you got to get going. I just want to say, like, I appreciate everything you're doing. You've definitely motivated me to sort of step forward in my own way and help out the skimboarding community. And yeah, glad to have you on the podcast episode. I'd be happy to have you back too.
Thanks.
You know.